from. And while at it, as you introduce yourself, please, on the chat, please indicate what your expectations are for this particular session. Oh, sorry. We're disabling the chat option. Okay, Nerima, great. You can start.
Yes, she can speak.
I see we have Charles from Suba. We have Isaac Correa from Eldoret, Sophia from Kilifi, Priska Gibinji from Nairobi, George Lule. This is great, great. This is great representation. There's Pamela from Kisumu County, Abigail from Busia, Evans from Tana River. Wow, wow. Patrick from Mukuru. There's a fellow Cynthia from Kisumu, Jedida from Nairobi. Tracy from Karunguru. This is great. So to Nerima, might you be having some challenges? Because we were waiting for you to introduce yourself so that we can.
I'm perfectly fine. I was actually waiting for you.
Okay, great. Please, great. As I'd earlier alluded, we are honored to have you today. So kindly start by briefly introducing yourself and sharing your journey in the civil society sector.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. As mentioned, my name is Nerima and I'm the director at Siasa Place. And Siasa Place was founded in 2015. We're registered in 2016 as an NGO. And so initially when we registered, we were not planning on registering as an NGO. It just seemed like the easiest thing to do. And so when I say we were about 7 friends of ours that I had met in various spaces. So all the founders of Siasa Place were youth, and some are still youth. Some of us are crossing over, and it's been in existence in about 8 years now, 8-9 years. It has been in existence. So we work on the inclusion of young people in political processes, in governance, and also educating them on the Constitution. And we work in about 12 counties in Kenya.
Wow, wow, that is that's a key and very good introduction for the session. As Ayla mentioned, we want this to really go far and wide. So please tweet about this under the using the hashtag Amnesty Career Talk. So Nerima, thank you so much for this introduction. It is quite inspiring to hear about your journey. Now, let's delve deeper into our theme. The civil society offers a range of opportunities for young leaders. Could you highlight some of the key opportunities available in this sector and how they contribute to positive social change?
Okay. So I'm going to be very honest and authentic, and I hope that people don't view it as pessimism, but rather reality and pragmatic. So in a nutshell, the opportunities are many, but they have to be created. And I say this because when we formed Siasa Place, we were all working in different places. Some of us were in school, some of us were not employed, but searching for work after graduation. So we started it volunteering. And that's an aspect that some people enjoy volunteering, others do not. But volunteering helped in terms of understanding the way offices and organizations work. So for me, it wasn't my first job. I had worked and lived in the US because I studied there for about 7 years. So this is my fourth job by the time I was 23. So I started working when I was 17. But I was able to understand the way offices function to the point where by the time I came, I was working as a consultant to start an organization here in Kenya that was based in the US. So as far as opportunities go, many people will tell you today that they don't have jobs at the office. It's true, because unemployment is high and we all know the economic status of our country. So as much as paying jobs do not exist, it doesn't mean that opportunities are not there. There are many organizations that are functioning, but they have gaps, including mine. And one classic example would be our online social media handles, for instance. So right now we're using Zoom, but we're also on Twitter, we're on Facebook, you're on TikTok. And sometimes for one person to manage all those accounts is unrealistic. Even though there are companies and organizations that only hire one person. I say it is insane to have one particular individual in charge of all communications of your organization. It makes no sense. So what we would do is have volunteers and interns try and support us with the social media engagement. That's an easy entry point because many of us interact on platforms personally for fun, and we enjoy it. So if you were able to do that for work, would you enjoy it? Or from managing social media accounts, meetings and engagements, writing reports about it, to even people just looking at my website and telling me, I've seen this program, I really like it. Is there any opportunity for me to come and intern, volunteer, and just learn? How can I be involved? Are there any clubs or anything like that? So for me, I would say the entry point is an opportunity with any organization that you're interested in learning from. But also, young people do also have to understand that as much as your goal is to get a job, employment, and to be able to get the resources to bring up your family or to support your family, it doesn't always turn out that way. We are always, it's always drummed into your head that go to school, finish school, and get employed. It's not that straightforward. So for me, even though I had worked part-time and I had worked for a while, then I came to Kenya, I wasn't working full-time. I was working part-time. So I could have just worked part-time and that's it. But I ended up working part-time, but meeting different people from different organizations and supporting them with the talents that I have. So for me, my talents are communications. So a number of times I volunteered with other larger organizations to support them with their communications, from just writing blogs, writing articles, doing social media, to taking videos with a simple phone or taking videos with a camera. So the opportunities lie in what are you good at already, and where can you plug that gifting and talent without necessarily being paid initially. So there are people who can take advantage of that and keep you in a position or role for a long period of time without compensation. But there are also ways for you to say, or limit yourself and say, I'm going to stay here for 3 months. I really want to learn from this organization. Hopefully they can even write for me a referral for a job application that I do. Networks. Networks are also an opportunity for young people. A lot of times we think that having the resources is the only and end all. But because you have the energy, because you have the time, then that means you can capitalize on that and network with people. Get to know the existing organizations out there working on things that you're interested in. Get to know who manage them. Get to know the activities they're interested in, what they're doing. And that way it also gets you in this space. So people will think about people that they have met and that they know. So that if something arises, they're able to reach out to you and say, hey, there's a job application here. Maybe you can try and apply. Or I've heard that this organization is hiring, maybe you should check it out. Or even in those networks, you're now able to receive whether there's an advertisement for a particular job, that's where you're going to get it. But you're not going to get it by being in the same spaces. But I think something that has helped me a lot has also been consistency and discipline, because I've always been passionate about youth work, youth space, whatever youth are doing. So you don't find me everywhere. You won't find me in particular sectors. So I'm not spreading myself thin to be like, I want to be here, I want to be there, I want to be there. Because sometimes you can find yourself very worn out, exhausted. And because you're tired, you begin to lose even your own faith in terms of what you're doing. So it even becomes more difficult for you to even get out and meet people and network because you don't even have the transport to go out. So being strategic about the kind of gatherings that you go to or where you go to, but also utilizing the internet to be able to research on individuals and getting to know who are these people that I would be interested in working with in the future. And am I in a position to actually go and meet them, not just to necessarily ask them for a job firsthand, but to say, I would like to learn from you. And what can I learn from you, I think is an important aspect.
Wow. Thank you, Nerima. What I have picked from this conversation is that one of the key ways to get into this sector is through volunteering. Volunteering your time, volunteering your craft. And what I can equally and confidently agree on and inform and even encourage the youth today is that volunteering is key in building your number of years of experience. So we have organizations that will give you, we need 3 years of experience, and yet probably you don't have that. When you go and volunteer, that adds on to the number of years of experience that you have. That's number one. Another strategy that she has come up with is you need to have consistency and discipline. You need to be an expert in your craft. The moment you become an expert in your craft, you will focus your knowledge, you will focus your energies, you will focus your technological skills or your abilities in one particular area. And the beauty of being a technocrat is the fact that you will be the go-to person in a particular area. That does not mean you're not going to build other skills. You really need to equally build other skills, but have a focal point, have a true north as a young person on where you're going to lead. Another thing and another beauty of volunteering is the fact that Nerima has mentioned that it enables you to build a network. Many a times it is through these different volunteering opportunities that you are able to meet some of the big names in the sector. And as you meet these big names in the sector, as you volunteer, you need to leave a mark. When you do something, do it very, very well, okay? Also, she has mentioned about the fact that you can utilize the internet. This is where anything and everything in terms of knowledge can be found. So utilize that. That is really great, Nerima. And also, if I flip this to look at Amnesty International Kenya, for example, because that's what I'm speaking of, we have staff, and a good number of our staff began as interns at Amnesty. And as is, we even have one staff member who began as an intern and is now a manager. So those are some of the spaces that you can really build. You can really build yourself, build your craft. And while at it, I'd like us to really turn the conversation over to you, our audience. So if you could please raise your virtual hand, and we'll be able to unmute you so that we can have an active participation session. Because remember, as we began this particular session, we said that this is going to be very, very interactive. This is something, it's going to equally be a storytelling time. Nerima has spoken about her story. So you also need to tell us what you see in this space. You need to share your thoughts and also ask your questions. So I will open up the plenary and also invite Nerima to respond to some of the questions and reflections. So we'll start with a block of 5 questions and reflections. Then our guest speaker, Nerima, will come in to respond to the same. Thank you. The plenary is open for us to share. So you can raise your virtual hand. And maybe I could, I noticed we have Leah Gitahi. Leah, are you able to hear us? I have a question for you. Okay, I'm going to read out a question that you have asked Nerima. So the question, Nerima, is, did you face legal challenges when you are operating without registration at the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm not the best with the storytelling. I will try and be better at it. But yes, we did. So here we are all youth. We have never formed anything in our lives. All of us are between 21, 24, 25. And we felt that we really need to register an entity to do the work that we wanted to do. So initially, we used to meet at Pasara, and we used to have meetings every Saturday, because like I told you, some of us were in school, some of us were looking for work, some of us were working part-time. No one was full-time at that time, nobody. So Saturday was the best day to meet. So we would meet on Saturday and discuss, if this is going to be an entity, because sometimes we would have conversations about what's happening in the country. Like this would have been an example. We would have met on Saturday, like tomorrow, and said, hey, everyone is discussing this finance bill. What do the youth think about the finance bill? Where's your stand on it? And then at the end of that meeting, we would put our points on social media. So we would put all our points on Twitter. So even right now, like the Siasa Place Twitter account is older than my personal account, because we had all agreed that, okay, because we don't have an office, back then, Twitter had just started picking up. We were like, Twitter is one place we can all get accounts, and we can start this entity on that platform. And so we were like, hey, we need to register this thing, because now it started to grow, it started to get followers, it started to get people asking questions, and people invite a CBO. But a CBO, we were like, sometimes we're getting questions from Nakuru, sometimes we're getting from Kisumu, and we're here in Nairobi. So a CBO was crossed out because it meant that we wanted to leave the county. And then we were left with, maybe we register a trust. Now, a trust we could not afford, because there's a certain level of resources that you have to have. And some of them you have to have access to a piece of land, which none of us had. Then we looked at an association. We're like, hey, we're not that large to be an association. We don't really have members. We don't have membership. So we were pretty much left with an NGO. And so when we went to the NGO, initially, it was a little expensive. In fact, I remember it was about 22,000. And so 22,000, and then none of us are really like working full time. We decided that we all chip in to start the registration process for NGO. So we each contributed the way we could, like a harambe. And then we got up to 30,000. So we started with the name. The name was rejected. The name was rejected the first time. I was told, you can't register a political party. So I said, but it's not a party. They said, no, it's something called Siasa, go register with political parties. So they refused, they rejected. So we came back, we said, no, we're keeping the name Siasa Place, because that was something that one of the founders, Murabwa or Dari, he stuck on that. He said, Siasa has to be our name, because we're basically teaching you that politics affects everything, every single thing. So we want to be very intentional about politics. So it's about us saying youth are in politics, we're concerned about politics. So we kept the name. So I changed it on the form to the Siasa Place Kenya, and Siasa Place United, but it was still Siasa Place. So of course they rejected it a second time, and I was told to meet the ED for NGO Council that time. And so I went, we had a meeting with him, and he asked, why do you want this name? And we explained, and he basically told us, Siasa is a word that has been banned from Kenya. Like, the only people who use the word siasa is politicians. And the reason why it's not really used is because Moi really used it in the 90s because of his saying, siasa poa, maisha poa. So it was this rhetoric that Moi owns the word siasa. So we asked, is it legally owned? Like, is it anywhere that it refuses us to use the word siasa? And they say, no, it's not. So I went back, we sat down with the team, and they basically said, no. There's no way it's legally said we can't use it. We use it. So we went back a third time. And so now the third time, the receptionist was like, you guys, you're really insisting with this name. And said, yes, we are. So she told me, okay, have a seat. So of course, by this time, the ED knows why I'm there and finds us an annoyance. So there were days I would go to the NGO Council building at Cooperative, where it was on 15th floor. There were days I would be there almost every day, sitting from lunchtime after I come from work. I'm there from 1 o'clock. Even the receptionist knew me, and she was just like, weka tu hapo kando, kama kona time atakuona. And there are days he left at 8 p.m. and he would pass me sitting in that lobby. And they would close the office, and he would say, maybe tomorrow. So there are times I got tired. I'm like doing this for 2 weeks, and I'm wondering, come on, I mean, do we really have to keep this name? So I remember I sat down with my friends. We were at Kilimanjaro, Kimathi Street. We had just had lunch, and I said, hey, you guys, this thing, I think we just changed the name of it, because they've insisted that we're not going to keep the name. And that is the time why an important and a good team matters. Because that is the day all of them just looked at me and said, Nerima, you're going to quit for who? Why? You're going to stay there. Like, we're going to keep this name. We're refusing you to quit. Like, you as our leader, we've refused you to give up. We have not given up. So why are you? So interestingly, the very next day, I got a phone call. And it had basically said, oh, we were just doing a bit of a background check, just to make sure that you guys, you're who you say you are, because they have to do a whole like NIS background check of the founders, the directors. And they basically said it's at the last stage. It's now at the desk of the president of the president's desk. But we think it's going to go through. So it's going to be approved. You guys are going to get registered. So just the next day after I had said that I want us to quit with this registration of a NGO, the next day is when we were told that we're going to get our certificate. So that's how we ended getting an NGO. We went and registered the name Siasa. So we've trademarked it for 20 years now.
Wow. Wow. That is the epitome of resilience and persistence. And really, really proud of you. So we have 9 of us who would like to ask questions. So I will allow Priska to come in with the first question, and then Crystal. So after every 2 questions, Nerima will be in a position to respond to them. Thank you very much. Priska?
Okay. Hi, how are you, team? I'm Priska, and my question is to Nerima. Like, how do you fit in, and how do you identify a gap in a certain area? For example, in the youth sector, how do you identify a gap? You address it, and how do you know that wherever you are going or the office that you are knocking at is the right one? The challenges of youth facing, more so in the politics.
Thank you.
Thank you, Priska. Crystal, you can come in with your next question before Nerima gets to respond to the 2. Crystal? Okay, we'll go next to Wycliffe Okumu. Wycliffe, are you with us? Would like you to respond, to ask your question. Great.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My question is this: for the youths in local and rural areas, how are they able to get these opportunities? Because you find out that leadership is left for the old in the society, in the rural areas. What can we do as youths in the rural areas? Because you see this rural-urban migration, it's like taking the resources from the rural to urban, living poverty, thriving. What can we do?
Thank you, Wycliffe. Nerima, probably you can take those 2 questions. The first one was from Priska about how do you know that there's an opportunity, or how do you know that, or which door can you knock? And from Wycliffe, it's that how do you influence change in the rural areas, bearing in mind that in rural Kenya, a good number of the leaders are of the older generation. Over to you, Nerima.
So Priska, I think the first thing is to find out what your interest is. Because if someone told me 10 years ago that I would be running an organization that deals with governance and politics, I would say you're lying. Because my background is in journalism, and then I did my master's in emergency management. So my first ever job was actually in peace conflict resolution. So nothing to do with what I'm doing today. So the only reason that that shift happened for me is because when I came back from studies, is now when I was doing part-time consultancy, I was doing it for a peace conflict resolution organization that did a lot of work in Mombasa, countering violent extremism, and also Sudan, South Sudan. We worked also in Burundi. But my focus was the youth programs. So I would do a lot of the reviewing of the shows they were doing in, say, Burundi, the comics, because they were doing a lot of sharing information through music, through writing of blogs, through video, which is now my journalism background. But when I was there, I began to ask questions about Kenya, because I was like, okay, So in Kenya, I'm mainly working in Mombasa, but I'm curious, what are youth in other counties working on? You know, what are youth who are not considered CVE or at risk for terrorism doing? And so it's out of those questions that I was asking myself, I found myself attending meetings on youth engagement, governance, and that's where I bumped into a lot of my co-founders. I bumped into Murabwa at a meeting at Desmond Tutu Conference Center. I bumped into Shefa at a meeting in Hurlingham in Priority Plaza. I bumped into Buki at a meeting at Power 254. So all of them, I met them at events, and it was just meeting them and then saying, that's interesting. I also think that, you know, I think we should do more around youth space. What do you think? And then you find their connections. So in identifying an issue or a gap, you have to know what it is you're passionate about. Like I already said, I knew I liked working with youth. I knew anything to do with youth engagement, I want to be there. So even my youth, even though it was in countering violent extremism, it was youth. So that's now when I began to ask questions of, Allah, but what's happening in the rest of the country and who's working on the rest of the country? So when I started asking those questions, I found Youth Agenda is already there. Youth Alive Kenya is already there. Africa Youth Trust is already there. Emerging Leaders Foundation is already there. So all these organizations I knew worked on the youth space. I went through the different profiles, the different websites. How do they engage youth? What is their vision for youth? What is their goal for youth? See, the difference with Siasa Place, we look at public participation. We focus on the constitution. We focus on political engagement. We're very clear. So I knew that out of these three, they're not doing public participation, constitutionalism, pushing for youth to enter political leadership. So I was like, okay, the gap. So that's how we now created this Siasa Place and said, okay, we're going to fill the gap that we feel already exists, because we've seen youth groups work with leaders, but it's very general. They'll say leaders, but they do business, the economy. As we're specific, we're like political. That's it. So that's how you begin to see what you're passionate in. You begin to ask questions around that particular matter, and you begin to see gaps, because there are so many gaps, including system, including access to information, including disseminating information. So it's just about where do you want to plug in, and how do you think your talent can be utilized to plug in is what I think a lot of youth struggle with. And then on the next question from Wycliffe, so I think it's an interesting question, because I got an email 2 days ago from a young guy from Kericho County. So I've shared that also as a lot of our work is in rural areas, actually. I work in rural areas more than in urban. So in Kericho County, Victor Tum writes me an email, and he basically says, hey, I'm looking for employment, and I've seen that there's a job offer, like there's a job application for the chief position, chief. So he says, I'm actually interested in this position. But then when I look at the criteria, the only thing missing, I have to be 35 years and above. Do I have to be above 35 to apply for chief? And I said, Victor has come across a gap. Because really, do you have to be 35 to be a chief? Because people will tell you, oh, you know, with age comes wisdom, but really does it? Because even the way we have shifted the way government works. People used to go to the chief to get government services. The chief is the one who will fundraise the community, has been removed and it has been changed. And I remember sitting in the office with my team and we're like, this is very interesting. And I remember thinking, let me think about it, because till now I haven't answered. Because if he challenges this, it means that we take it to court. But not only will we take it to court, it will need public awareness. Public awareness means sitting with the community to share information as to why we think this should be changed, because there are a lot of unemployed young people who have the wisdom, they're smart enough, they're educated, they've graduated, they can take that role very easily, considering the role of the chief has changed. It's no longer a traditional role only, not anymore. So he has brought about a lot of questions that we hadn't been thinking about. And I think it's a good thing, because he has noticed a gap, and that might be his gap to fill. Because now we're here in the office thinking, okay, do we let Victor go forward with this case? That means we have to support him for the case if we agree. And that means he'll be in charge of doing the public awareness and community engagements around it. But imagine if he was to submit such a case and he wins in Kericho County, it can be a ripple effect across the country. And just like that, Victor has created opportunity for young people by asking a question. So I would say, yes, I agree. There are a lot of positions that are existing, but there are advantages. There are people who have taken advantage of young people due to lack of information and awareness. There are even certain board positions within the county that must have a youth representative. But every time we go, you will find that it's being represented by an 80-year-old man or 70-something, because he's in the village. The youth have no idea that that position is for them. We have insisted and pushed for youth to sit on boards, from education boards in schools, to the water board, to even higher learning education boards across sectors. So as soon as young people realize that there are actually opportunities in the counties that they can plug into, that means that they have to understand the legalities and processes of these spaces. So you have to get out of your comfort zone to understand the way county government works. And then you'll begin to see that, this is actually a place I can plug in, or this is actually a space where I'm seeing it's vacant. It's not working, and it's something that I think I can support. So I would say call out leaders, because there are positions that are supposed to be for youth and there are no youth there, and also open up, because there are certain levels of positions and opportunities that should be there for the youth that are not recognized or ignored by the government, that you can highlight and even open up spaces for you and even others after you.
Deep, Nerima, that's great. And it still aligns to what you had initially indicated, that one of the ways you can get into this space is by utilizing the internet. There's a lot of knowledge and information on the internet of where gaps exist and the like. Great, so I'll go, before I allow Isaac and Roman to bring in their questions. There was a question from Charleston Henry, where he said, with this tough financial times, how does one survive as a volunteer? That's question one. Then Roman, I saw your question, but at the same time, your hand was raised, so I would allow you to probably speak and ask your question. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Roman.
I hope you guys are. Yes, I'm called Wako Roman. Luckily enough, I found my person that I share with the same name. But unfortunately, she's from Kenya and I'm from Uganda. Yes. My question was, personally, I'm a human rights lawyer who has been working with the minority groups in Uganda. Until recently when I had to run and come to Kenya and continue with my advocacy work. So my question goes to Nerima Wako, my namesake. Is there any organizations that I can work with here in Kenya as a volunteer? Is there any recommendations that you can recommend? Could it be Amnesty International or any other organization that can really take me in and I volunteer for them? Thank you.
Okay. So Nerima, you could probably respond to those two. I would respond to probably one, and the one on from Charleston Henry, with this tough financial times, how does one survive as a volunteer? I will link this to what Nerima said. You can be your own change in the place you are. We have, like for instance, when you look at Amnesty International, we have circles of conscience. We have social justice centers that work with different partners. And most of these groupings are within our spaces that you can even walk to from where you live to a social justice center or to a grouping of the youth. That is still volunteering. And as Nerima pointed out, be an expert in your craft. That way you will easily be picked from a crowd of several people and probably get a role. But as you're volunteering, don't put in mind that I'm in it for the money. You do the right thing, money will come your way. So Nerima probably can respond to Roman, then Isaac, Maina, and Lawrence Ochola will come in with your next set of questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those questions. So
I think, Nerima, we lost you. Hello, Nerima. Okay, as Nerima still looks into aligning her, getting on, I'd also like to speak a bit about our membership as Amnesty. We have different membership. Membership what? Can anyone in the group tell me? We have different membership categories. So through this, you can apply to become a supporter. Okay. You can be a justice member. So amazing. I'm seeing some. I'm getting some insights from Equality member. Great. This indeed is to say that we have members here who really understand what we do as Amnesty. So probably with these different membership tiers, with these different categories of membership, you can sign up to become a member of Amnesty. Thank you, Ivans Mwangera. So for those of us who are not members, please take initiative, get into our website and apply for membership. We also have our supporters who do quite a lot when it comes to pushing our petitions. The last petition we had was on the NHIF Act. And when this was done through our supporters and our other members, it really gained traction. And it was one of the petitions that met government to hear what Kenyans are looking for, particularly in the arm of public participation. So when you get to hear, or when you get to hear or see aspects of or requests for petitions, to push petitions, please sign those petitions, because those are the things that are going to make government listen to us. And these are also forums that can allow us to engage members of the public on the same. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sophia, for your comment that the sessions are very productive, and that you are gaining a lot. The other thing that I'm seeing is that how much is it to apply to be a member? we have our team on the back end who are going to indicate the same on the chart so that you can see the costs of you becoming a member. Another response from the team, I see Timothy is on the call with us, and happy to know that Timothy is one of our current student interns at Amnesty International. Thank you, Timothy, for being here with us.
I think Cynthia, as we explained in the call, there's also volunteer opportunities at Amnesty. We invite you to register as volunteers. Whenever those opportunities come up, you'll receive an invite to apply for those.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Matthias. There's a request for me to get through the chat. Yes, that has been done. I have noted the questions, so I am trying to have a mix on those of us who had raised up their hands to speak on the questions, and also I have the questions that I will read out to Nerima. Thank you, Nerima. I'm sorry for that technical hitch. So I would allow Isaac Maina to speak to his question, and also Lawrence Ochola. And after that, I will ask the question. I will read out the question from Dennis Kimathi. Over to you, Nerima.
Hi, sorry, I just like dropped out. Anyway, so I was answering, I think I had finished wrapping up on Wycliffe's, but then I was also talking about the survival tactics, but I was saying it really helped to have like a community. It really helped me to have a community of friends who we chipped in together, because I mean, you're broke, but you're not broke all the time. Like there's sometimes you do a kabiashara here, a side hustle here, and you might get, or you make like 1K. I would remember when Murabwa helped me with transport one day. And so we would chip in together. So we had like all not really full-time working. And then number 2, I did a lot of writing. So my craft is communications. So I started writing for Nation. I would write, the way they ask if you want to write an article or if you want to share on the op-eds, I would. So every week, loyally, I would. Whether it was printed or published or ignored, I did. So because of the consistency, it got to a point where now, actually, that's how I got on TV, where now I was called by Nation. First, I was called by Teddy Josiah, and then he said, oh, normally we read your articles, you write so well, we just don't know where you've come from. It's like this chick who just came from nowhere, and all of a sudden she's writing articles about the state of the nation. So we normally read your stuff. We think you're really good at what you do. Keep doing. Larry Mado actually called me. He was like, would you like to come on air? So for me, oh, have you heard me now?
We lost you at where you said you were, Ted called you and wondered who's this person. So probably that's where we lost you.
Oh, I think I'll turn off my video. Maybe my network will be better.
Probably.
I don't know what's going on with it. Yeah. So I was saying that it helped work or your name out there even before the rise of your name, if that makes sense, because I was able to now have my work digitally. I had a digital footprint before, because it also helps in building your credibility, so that after the whole media interviews and all that, that's how somehow, like, you wake up one day and you're on Wikipedia, because people are now like, they find your work to be credible, they find your work to be factual, and so you build your own brand from that. So even by just writing in my own space using my internet, I was able to volunteer. I was volunteering for Daily Nation, even though they didn't know I was volunteering for them. I was. So I was producing content, not recognizing my efforts, but after months of doing that. On the final question from Roman Wako, I would say that there's actually a young man that I know. I bumped into him. I'm trying to trace his organization again. So I'm just trying to confirm the name of his organization, but he's Rwandese and he came to Kenya about 20 years ago because of the genocide through his family. And so he doesn't have the paperwork, but he's also a lawyer. So he formed an organization that supports
I think we lost you again, Nerima. So as Nerima sorts out her network issues, probably I'll speak to the membership questions. So if you would like to register as a member,
refugees with similar case, asylum who are young, because he's a youth as well, and he was.
Nerima, we lost you.
Hi, Cynthia, I'm back.
Okay, so go ahead. You were speaking about the gentleman, the Rwandese gentleman. That's where
Yes,
we dropped.
Yes, I said I'm just confirming the name of his organization. So I'll share it back once I get the confirmation before the end of our call today. But I'm getting it. I think that would be a good place for Roman to put his energies in.
Amazing, amazing. Great. So I mentioned that there was a request from the team to get to know how one can register as a member or a volunteer. Or in the chat, there's a link that will direct you on how to do this. So please check the link. So Isaac Maina, it's your turn to ask your question, and also Michelle. So if you can be able to make our questions quite short and precise so that we can be able to cover or gain a lot of traction based on the other questions that have come up in the chat. Thank you. Isaac Maina, you're next, then Michelle Joseph. Isaac? Okay, thank you. I've seen that you've asked your question in the section. That is fine. So Michelle, can you probably come in next with your question, then Brian Kiprop. Brian Kiprop, are you still on the call? Okay, so allow me to ask the question from Dennis Kimathi. So Dennis asks that what fundraising opportunity platforms can youth be linked to for grant making? That's one question, Nerima. Another question from the chat from Billy Osogo is, have you encountered toxic or narcissistic supervisors in your journey leading to the establishment of Siasa Place? How would you go about it?
So the interesting thing about me is I enjoy writing. I actually want to one day, hopefully, God willing, write a book. However, I have never written a grant and actually gotten funding. Never, ever. I guess I am not good at it, and I have come to acknowledge that. So even in terms of opportunities for getting resources, I do know that there are entities like Urgent Action or Black Feminist Fund, or sometimes even some organizations here in Kenya like Uraia do have open calls. Now, these calls are normally in the newspapers. they're in the newspapers. And because a lot of young people do not read the newspapers, they do not buy them, we miss them. But they do have open calls for proposals. But I wouldn't be the best person to give advice on how to write a proposal for fundraising. What I am good at and I had to learn how to be is networking. I didn't enjoy it. In fact, I think that I was a little bit more reserved and a little bit of an introvert. However, when Murabwa, my co-founder, left the organization, he was the networker. He was the fun guy that everybody loved being around. And so he knew how to fundraise. He knew how to ask for money. So when he left, because he was interested in vying for Member of Parliament Lugari in 2017, I was left with the burden of fundraising. So I had to learn how to network. So it's not something that you can't learn how to do. And so it meant pushing myself to go for some functions and talk to people. So because I'm not someone who can go and talk to 20 people and introduce myself, I find it very awkward to do. So I would have a target of talking to at least 5 people at a function. Let me speak to 5 people. Let me get to know 5 people deeply so that I can at least see maybe there's opportunity to partner. And it's through those deep connections that I have managed to fundraise very well. Because I have learned that, people fund people that they like. And I've also learned that people support people that they trust. People have to trust you, believe in your idea. They want to believe in what you stand for, what you do. And then they are like, okay, you know what? Let me see if I can fund you. And it's not always a lot of resources. It starts with very little in terms of we'll pay like, 20K for this event, we'll buy your refreshments. Just be responsible enough to do the report. So once you do those things like reporting, the event is a success, then they trust you with more and they trust you with more. So that helped me as well.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Nerima, for that. I will quickly go to Kiprop, to Brian Kiprop. Please go ahead.
Okay, hello everyone. Brian Kiprop, and mine is not more of a question, but suggestion. So in our schools, in our universities, we find that we have a lot of ungovernmental organizations which are more based on either gender and environmental conservation. So we have not seen much such as Siasa Place coming into universities where we have very big platforms for the youth and engaging us. So Nerima, what are you doing to see that you can penetrate into universities?
It's a good question.
Nerima, allow me to allow Lawrence Ochola to also ask his question, then you can take the 2. Thank you. Lawrence? Please go ahead, Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm Lawrence. Mine also was not you tend to. Hello.
I'm sorry, Lawrence, we can't hear you well.
Okay, I think maybe you can come back to me later because I'm in town, and I doubt if at all we will get each other.
Please, you can go ahead and just write your question. Thank you, Lawrence. Nerima, allow me to ask a question from Abigail, who said that in a scenario where you're interested in 3 areas and the services are provided by different CBOs or rather CSOs, how can you handle that in terms of consistency, yet you are just a volunteer? I'll take it again. Abigail asks, in a scenario where you are interested in 2 or 3 areas and the services are provided by different CBOs or rather CSOs, how can you handle that in terms of consistency to get in terms of consistency, yet you are just a volunteer?
Thanks, Cynthia. So the first question on what I'm doing in universities, in the beginning of the conversation, I talked about how we did a bit of a mapping on what different organizations are doing in the youth space. ELF is very much in universities. Youth agenda was very much in the universities. And then you have groupings like USPAC as well, and several others. So, like I said, I'm not everywhere. We don't go where I feel there's someone plugging into a gap. My job is not to come and join you in solving your issue. There's so many issues that Kenya has. So you just find your thing and focus on your thing. But I've been getting a lot of invitations to come to universities. Because we work in rural areas very much, we've been seeing huge impact where we work, but we're not seeing much change in universities, especially when it comes to engagement outside of university in relation to the community. So as recently as last month, the National Students Caucus, they wrote to us and they said, we want to have a meeting on the Universities Amendment Act. We think that our institutions should care about it. They should care about our mental health and nutrition. I did agree to support their meeting, which they had. In fact, as we speak, they're writing to us the reports on it. So I believe we will start partnering with the universities, but I am not leading in that space because that is not my space. And I recognize that. So if there are students who feel, there is a huge gap here, you come and talk to us and say, this is the gap, this is what we think needs to be done, and we're the right people to do it. So we definitely support. So I'm open to that. When it comes to 3 or 2 organizations that you're interested in volunteering in, time management is one of the things that I learned at a very early age that I carry to this date. In fact, my team sometimes, I was telling them I attended a meeting in Mombasa. I came back last night and I walked into the meeting. It was to start at 9 a.m. And I walked into the room at 8:59 because in the program, I assumed that 9 a.m. would be registration. So I came at 8:59 to register and the meeting starts. I was assuming at 9:30. The meeting had already started. And I messaged my team and I said, I have just walked into a room that is better at time than I am. I'm ready to bring these new rules back to the office. And my team was like, no, because my team knows that if I say a meeting starts at 3, I'm the last one to walk in at that 3 o'clock and we start the meeting. You do not come late. So I'm a big person on utilizing your time well. If you feel those 3 are important for you to volunteer at, there are ways you can coordinate your schedule to make sure that you're able to volunteer at the 3. You don't have to volunteer every day. Imagine you can work at one place for 2 days a week, but the capacity and focus you have given those 2 days, it's like you are there for a whole 2 weeks. We have to learn how to use our time better. A lot of us, you will find, you walk into the office, you go there, you're volunteering, the office, they open at 9, umeingia hapo 9:15, you go, you greet people, unasoma gazeti kidogo, unaingia Wi-Fi, unaangalia Facebook kidogo, you're now messaging some of your friends on WhatsApp, 10 o'clock, ndio hiyo kazi inaanza, 10:30, hey, some tea, wacha niende nichukue mandazi. I mean, there are things that we can do in a day that honestly, today morning, because I got back from Mombasa, I was in the office from 8:30 because I was on air. I was on Citizen from 6:30 and I left the studio at 8. I got to the office at 8:30 and I've wasted time because I was talking to Buluma in the parking lot. But I had already told my team, I'm going to be at the office at 8:30 sharp. If you need me to sign things, put them on my desk because at 9:30, I'm leaving. I have another function at Safari Park. So I come to the office at 8:33, my papers are on the table, my pen is there, I sign things, I approve things, I email, and I'm out. So there's ways for you to be able to utilize your time well, but it also means the discipline. Remember I talked about the discipline? So if you're going to say, I'm going to volunteer at this organization, you can even do it only the morning hours. You say, office opens at 9 because I have many things I'm interested in. What time is it opened? They'll say 7:30, there's a cleaner. How about I come at 7:30? When the cleaner comes to open the office, I will be there at 7:30 and I can only work until noon because I have other engagements. So that is a 4-hour day and you can give yourself a 30-minute break. And you have achieved a lot where you're saying, I'm not on my phone, I'm focusing on the work that I need to do. And then at the end of my shift, I've said, this is what I've managed to do. This is what you asked me to do. This is what I'm going to follow up on. I'll be back tomorrow. You're free for your afternoon. You're free. So I know in the beginning, I did a lot of that in terms of, because I was working part-time, remember, as a consultant. So I would be in the office by 7 a.m. for my consultancy, and I would be out by lunchtime because I made an agreement that I'll only work part-time. So by the time I'm leaving the office, it's 1, lunchtime, I have lunch, 2, I'm in town. 2, I'm in town, we're at Pasara until 5. Sometimes if it goes over, maybe 7. And then I'm back home and the cycle continues. So it just means that you might not have much of a social life if you choose to do the 3 organizations, but it's also for a short period of time. This is not something that you're going to do for 3 years. It's something that you're going to do for 3-6 months and you're done. So just choose to sacrifice your times and then just make sure you use your times well.
Wow. Thank you, Nerima. Discipline is core. Have that at the back of your mind every other time, back of your mind, front of your mind, and sideways, and you'll get better. So we initially indicated that this is an interactive space. We need you to interact equally on our social media platforms. At Amnesty Kenya, please do that. And I'll also respond to, there was a question by, I think, Isaac on granting. Amnesty equally offers granting opportunities to circles of conscience. We have a granting framework that we look at. So once you become part of a COC and you have a project that would need some grants, please reach out to the Amnesty team. The other question to you, Nerima, is from Brian Ochieng, where he asked that how does he get legal representation and support in a case where the government comes after him for his political stand? Then I'm really liking the number of people who would like to ask questions. And this even speaks to the fact that we will need to have another career session. We have over 14 virtual hands that have been raised, Nerima. So this is really generating a lot of interest. So allow me to let Mlachake Hachoki to probably ask a question or give us give us what he wants to tell us, and also Neil Samuel. Over to you, Mlachake. Mlachake? Okay. What about Samuel? Are you able to speak?
Yes, I am. I hope you can get me.
Yes, loud and clear. Karibu
Thank
sana.
you. Asante. So I have 2 queries and mine are on the finance aspect. First, let's say a person gets an opportunity to work in a CSO or an NGO. As a young person, you're probably coming in the much lower ranks. So when you're asked maybe what would you expect in terms of pay, is there like a certain range so that you are not asking for too much money, and 2, you're also not undercutting yourself? Still linked to the same, should you be a person running a CSO and maybe you're granted funding, I would like to believe part of the money might be used to like pay wages or stipends or something like that. is there like a formula you can use so that you're not using too much of the money that you've been given on paying people, and you're also not undercutting them such that they're doing much work and not receiving a commensurate amount of remuneration? So I hope you can at least help us get some guidance on that. Thank you.
Over to you, Nerima.
Oh, okay. Because I thought you were going to take a lot more. Sawa. All right.
Would you want me to take a lot more? I could.
Yeah, because there were quite a number. But I
Okay.
have Brian's, I have Neil's down. So maybe we can take 2 more.
Okay, this is from Francis Tome. He says that he's thankful for organizing or for the organizers of this forum, and that he would like to invite you, Nerima, to their youth center in Embakasi to conduct such a forum with the youth who need such information. Infinix Smart 6, probably you could ask your question as well. Infinix.
Hello.
Go ahead, please.
My name is Franklin, not Infinix. Sorry for not updating that. Hello.
Please go ahead. You're loud and clear.
Fine. I was asking that, for example, there are some of us youths who are in these kind of organizations, but we see that sometimes the leaders in such organizations take advantage of those who are at the lower ranks. For example, those who are going to volunteer. How can we deal with this, or as leaders, Nerima, how can we deal with this? Then the second question, how can we get a large number of youths involved in such kind of things? Because most of us are not just informed. Not that we have so many problems, but when you get this kind of information, you see, we are changing not only us and also, but also the society at large. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think Nerima, you can take those 4 questions. Please go
All
ahead.
right, thank you. Thank you so much. So the first one, I will start with Roman. I finally confirmed in terms of the contact of the organization. It's called Refugee Council. So kindly check them out. His name is Jean Ishimwe. So I think that would be an organization that's of interest to you. So just research and see. And then number 2 for Brian, I'd really like to know the backstory, because he's saying it's due to his political stand, but political stand on what? Are you a whistleblower? Were you highlighting a particular issue? Were you writing a blog and then they're saying it's false information? Like, I still think there's some detail there that I would need to know, and then we can direct the kind of support, but we're willing to hear more from Brian. And then from Neil, very interesting questions. So number 1, especially when it comes to managing an organization, I normally say that 3 of the important roles, not always, but always in the beginning, is the finance person, the accountant, who understand the monies and the way they flow, the communications person who can articulate what you guys do, what your achievements are about, your mission, and then the leader, the one who sort of puts everything together and make sure that they're coordinated is important, because they're also the ones who identify the team and who should join the team. That's also something that's not easy to do, by the way. So even when it comes to the percentages, different donors have different percentages for administration. So with the money coming in, it depends the resources where they are coming from. So there are some donors who will tell you straight up that with this resource that we're giving you, only 12% of it is to go toward your administrative costs. There are some who will say none. We will support the activity directly, but none of it is to go toward administrative costs. Then there are some who are flexible where you decide. So we have had to have internal meetings with the management and the finance group based on the size of the company. So based on the size of the company, we know that we need this much at the end of the year to survive. Yani, everyone gets paid, we've paid taxes, everyone, kila mtu ako sawa. And that amount is this much. So if I'm to get this much, this is the percentage I will need if I have, say, 5 donors. So it's math. It's a complete math equation. So for every organization, different size, different needs, different percentages. So it's also dependent on the size of your organization. But something that I tell startups all the time, don't grow too quickly. It gets to a point where you're getting someone supporting and you feel, oh my gosh, so many people are coming and supporting me. The first thing you think is hire, hire, hire. So you start hiring multiple people and then you can't keep these people for more than 6 months or a year. You realize, hey, kumbe, I don't even have the resources to keep these guys. So it's good to also have a plan in terms of your hiring. How many can you manage to hire? Because you also want to hire people and pay them well. You don't want to hire people and you're paying them salaries that they can't survive on. You're basically taking advantage of them. So that's also a very tricky balance, but I would say you need an accountant on your team to support you to think through some of these questions and to do some of these things. And as far as the range, again, it's dependent on the organization, what you have access to. You can find an organization paying a communications officer 110,000, you know, and then the same description, job description in another CBO, they are paying them 30,000. So it's also dependent on how large the organization is in terms of the salary range. What I normally tell people, especially us, like when we have interviews, some interviews I sit in, no one is stopping you from asking the range that they have in mind. When you're in a job interview and they ask you, what is your salary range? A lot of people just answer, oh, 60K, 110K. They're just throwing numbers. No one stops you from saying, what range do you have in mind for this particular job position? No one stops you from that. Or you can even say, when it comes to that particular question, I would like to differ for the moment. However, I'm willing to give a response to it if I make it to the next level so that we can discuss, but willing to negotiate. So there are ways to go around that particular question if you don't feel secure with answering and throwing numbers, but also if you know somebody who works within the organization to also give you a heads up that for this particular role, this is the range that they normally have in the company or the organization. For Daniel, thanks for the invitation to Embakasi. Very, very interested and excited to go. I also have a very able team that is constantly doing mentorship, even in the counties. So always willing to share what we have learned as we have grown as an organization. And also for me, if I have the time, I will come. For Franklin, I agree. There are people who do take advantage. They are. And that's why I said, have a timeline of when how long you want to volunteer at a space. Because sometimes we stay somewhere expecting a job to show up, or we've been promised a position, and then you've been there for a year plus with no contracts. First of all, people are not supposed to be volunteering more than 6 months. As soon as you do that, it is illegal. So after 6 months, you need to be asking, look here, 6 months are done. So should I go? Do you have openings? If not, wacha mi niende. And then if a position opens up and they really like you, they will normally call you back. They'll normally call you back and remember you and ask you to come back. And if you're in a position to come back. So making sure that you work within that time frame, because I do agree with you that people take advantage of it. My first volunteer position, I didn't get even, transport. So I know for my organization, we work to get transport for the volunteers. so that at least they're making 15K to be able to even get to the office, because I used to struggle to even just get to the office when I wasn't getting a pay to begin with. So there are challenges with interning, but do not stay longer than your time frame and leave when you notice that people are taking advantage of you. Leave.
Amazing, Nerima. You are our African sensei. Let me put it that way. So allow me to let some gender. Let us bring in some gender aspects here. So Josephine, and I see I have Josephine who could probably speak to us, who could ask a question. Caroline, Musembi, and Palma. Josephine is disconnected.
Guys.
Okay.
Hello, guys. Hello.
Okay, this is Josephine speaking. Cynthia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, I hope I'm not interrupting someone, but my question will be very brief. So thank you so much, Amnesty, Nerima, and Cynthia for having this space. So my name is Josephine Achieng. I work with the Bar Hostess Empowerment and Support Program. And BESP is a female sex workers-led organization in Nairobi. And mostly we work to ensure that the rights and dignities of sex workers are upheld. So I'm just referring to a case in terms of mentorship and also leadership, because we've had instances where we have members from the sex workers community, some of our members trying to stand into, or rather trying to get into some of these elective posts. So I'm just trying to come in terms of opportunities and some of the spaces that probably you'd offer, so that some of the sex workers who are aspiring to get into these leadership opportunities can actually get the correct mentorship. And it would be a very good thing for us as a community to just have someone getting elected in some of these posts. We had like 10 of them stand in the previous elections. All of them failed. But then again, the intention really made us proud. Thank you.
Great. Palma?
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Jeff Palma, a youth leader and a resident living at Kakamega County. Mine was not a question, but a suggestion. How can we get involved as young, talented youth in nurturing our talent in NGOs? And finally, I want to thank Chesaplace and Nerima, my boss, in recognizing my talent as a spoken word artist. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. Caroline, are you here with us? You could probably ask your question or give us your contribution. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Caroline.
Yeah, my name is Carol from Mombasa. Yeah, and it's my first time in such a forum. So my interest is in the PWD persons, and I had an interaction with some of them sometimes back. They were training about driving school. And my concern was, after they have been trained on such things, what more opportunities can we give them? Because when you train them on how to drive an automatic vehicle, this person is even struggling to find food to eat. How more can we empower them? Because I meet them still in the streets. There is nothing that has been given to them to maybe better their lives. They have to depend on people giving them handouts. How better can we help these people? Just something that I've been wondering. And if I were to get an opportunity to maybe take part in something that could better their lives, I would appreciate. I don't know if any of these organizations take part in such, but I would really be interested in taking part in such. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Nerima, would you take those, I think we have one question and two comments, or should I probably just go ahead and ask another person? Probably Hope, you could come in with your question, and Victor Chaka, because I see we're almost getting to the tail end of our conversation. So Hope and Victor, you can come in with your questions.
Okay, hello, you're able to get me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, my name is Hope Ngora. I'm from Homa Bay County. Now, there is this question I wanted to ask, particularly both you and Nerima. Do you people do town hall sessions per county? And if you're doing it, it's for what period of time? Because I feel in my background, there are so many youth, but they still don't understand about these platforms that you people are talking about. So at least if that opportunity can be there, then these people get to have that clear information of what happened. That would really be good for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor Chaka.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead, Victor.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Victor Bora. I'm currently an advocate trainee at the Kenya School of Law. And first is to thank the organizers and the facilitators of this talk. But my question goes to I have two. First to Nerima. I have come across some article written in 2014 that it's titled The NGOization of Resistance. And the gist of it is that the NGOs in the pool of governance, youth, they normally dole themselves to the society as an aid or benevolence and make the people or the society that was the target to lose the urge to politically resist. How best can we, as people who are interested in this area, to protect us or the society from reaching to such a point that we are not actually against the objectives that we wanted to meet? Then secondly, because that is a question, sorry, that was my question was from friends of my friends from Diani who worked at a certain environmental conservation organization, and they're basically youth. They're called Diani Youth Beach Cleaning. That was their question. My question goes to, second question goes to Amnesty, and I would like to know if there are any offers for pupillage positions. That's all.
Okay. Nerima, you can take the set of questions, and I will I'll answer the one that has been directed to me after you're done.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right,
Go ahead.
thanks. Sorry. Yeah, I said losing internet again, but so I'll try and see. I hope I got everybody. So I think for me, for Josephine, congratulations. Those 10 that actually vied, that's not an easy thing to do. We also supported 10 young women. However, 10 young women, 5 young men. However, the young women, none of them passed. 3 of the young men became MCAs. So I would, I don't know if you've heard of the Democracy Trust Fund. That's a good place to start through Eco Network Africa, through KWFT. They basically just save, it's like a chama for campaigns. It's a chama for politics. So I would encourage them to go at it again in 2027, and we start now. So getting into those circles now, they're already doing training, they're already doing branding in terms of visibility, and some of them have already been appointed to county positions where they vied. So it's also a good opportunity for your people to still remain active in the political space, even if it's in a small way. And I think the Democracy Trust Fund through Echo Network would be a good link for you. And also we do, or I would be interested in getting to know more about your particular group and also how to support in terms of future politics and engagement. For Palma, yes. So even you've shown me something new in terms of youth. So Palma is a spoken word artist, and we have actually, it's the spoken word artist who pulled me aside one day and said, Nerima, we have this talent. You normally get invited to events. Why can't you suggest for us to perform in these particular spaces? So we have started to do that. And so the program that is under, there are also writers and there are also illustrators. For the illustrators, we have actually printed some of their work. So they do illustrations look like the kind on newspapers, touching on political satire. And we've printed it. And sometimes when we go and have events, we have them printed out. And we've had people actually come and ask to buy their stuff. And so now pushing for them to actually sell it as a biashara. So even for spoken word artists, there's an opportunity in a lot of engagements. Young people need to support young people. So even when we're having forums, to be able to have platforms for youth to also showcase their arts and talents. And I like that whenever we're discussing very important issues, you can be discussing corruption, and they're able to come up with spoken word poetry around issues such as corruption. I think that's also an opportunity for many young people. Caroline, I'm not in the PWD space a lot, but one of the partners that we work with is called Andy. I don't know if you work with Andy. I know that they're based in Nairobi, but they work across the country. But also we work a lot with Disability Focus Africa. I think they would be better placed to see whether they have economic empowerment programs that maybe you can plug into and see if it's something that you can do in Mombasa. But I know Andy is the biggest one. And then Disability Focus Africa, I'm not sure, but I think they used to work in Changamwe, but I'll have to double check that and see. For Hope, so Hope, interestingly, we were in Homa Bay last month. We had a soccer tournament. We are in talks with Homa Bay County government to basically donate a space for youth to come and organize these town halls that you're talking about. So the office is called the Office of the Citizen. I'm actually asking my team where it's going to be based because they have just finished doing the painting of the office. I think I saw a picture last week. So yes, we normally do town halls, but not just town halls. We actually have festivals and sports tournaments. And then we have town halls intertwined in it as well. So those opportunities are there under Siasa Place in Homa Bay County. But when I confirm the venue, I will before this call ends. And as for Victor, very interesting insights. So I have the name of an NGO. I'm registered as an NGO, but we do not work as a traditional NGO. I've received a lot of backlash for that, but you mentioned that the article was written in 2014. There's a more recent article actually that was written this year, and it's by Good Trouble. They call themselves Good Trouble, but they talk about how the space is shifting. People are moving away from NGOs and working directly with grassroots communities. So NGOs are finding themselves playing a different role because donors are questioning how they facilitate funding. They feel that it keeps people limited because by the time you're doing an application, like I told you guys, I've never written a grant and actually gotten one. I really don't know how to do grant writing. It is very complex. For me, I find it very complex. So if someone like me is struggling with that, then a CBO in the village, in a rural area, is definitely going to struggle with applying for resources. So a lot of larger donor companies are seeing that this is a challenge. So they are changing the way they support grassroots startups. So it's a conversation that's currently happening, which I am very, very interested in, because they're saying, how can NGOs reduce how much they do in terms of being the intermediary? And how can they support grassroots more? How can grassroots decide what to do with their resources more? And how do we reduce the number of reporting or the extensive reporting to do it? So I think it's an interesting space. We also do, I wouldn't call it sub-granting, but then sometimes we have youth organizations approach us and they say, I really want to start a CBO and I don't know where to start. So we mentor them for about 3 months in terms of, this is how you do your accounting, this is how you do your reports, this is what it is to institutionalize. But not all youth groups want to become an organization. Some of them just want to be organic and fluid and be a movement. So we're also trying to figure out how to work with groups like that and account resources without necessarily forcing them to register and to have a certificate to be able to get resources. So sometimes we do have like sub-granting, where we sub-grant smaller organizations. So we have done that with Agenda Kenya in Mombasa. We've done it also in Kisumu with some organizations, and also in Kericho with Kericho Youth Network. So hoping to expand that over time. Thanks.
Thank you, Nerima. This is really deep. Allow me to respond to 2 questions. One on the does Amnesty also have town hall sessions, for instance, in Homa Bay? Yes, I'm happy to note that we have a Circle of Conscience in Homa Bay. So just reach out to us. We'll be able to link you up with the leaders down in Homa Bay, so that you can go, you can be able to be part of this very impactful group or Circle of Conscience. Then on the offers of pupillage from Victor, I believe, yes, Amnesty does offer pupillage services. As we speak, we have a candidate who is currently undertaking their pupillage at Amnesty. So in a year, we offer opportunities to up to 2 students to undertake pupillage in the same. So as we get towards the tail end of this very interactive space, we shall be putting up a poll so that we can get into a deeper exploration of what other sessions would you want us to undertake. And this is also, yeah, thanks. We already up. So take some time as we respond to some of your other questions to undertake the poll so that we can know where we are headed, and also tailor make these conversations to align with what is really, really needed with our large volunteer base as Amnesty International. Barbara, I think you can, Barbara, Julian, and Timothy, I will allow you to give the last 3 questions or responses to what we have talked about thus far, before we allow Nerima to also wrap up, and we will close the session at 4 p.m. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity, Cynthia. My question is, considering the dark side of politics and advocacy, how can one overcome the fear of speaking out, and what wisdom should one apply in such a niche? Thank you.
Okay. Timothy? Timothy, you had a question? Timothy, we are not able to hear you.
Thank you. Yes, I had a question. Thank you for the opportunity. My question is, in what ways can... Hello? Okay,
Go
my
ahead,
question is,
Timothy.
in what ways can Siasa Place partner with tertiary associations, and how can they work or mentor young aspirants and leaders, and do they have such a plan? And my follow-up question is, do they have an office in Lamu County?
Thank you. Allow me to let Julian Achieng to also ask her question, then Nerima can come in. Julian? Julian, are you with us? Okay. Emmanuel Mangera?
Hello.
Come in, Julian.
I'm so sorry, I'm on the way, but I'm just trying to stop and ask my question. I'm a volunteer from Justice Center within Kisumu and a champion of PWD. So I've been having this challenge of handling the issues when it comes to the rights of people living with disability, also in gender-based violence. So I was asking, what can I do to get that proper, to be enlightened, so I can know what to do and where to go to once I get something like that. Again, I just also have this problem on reproductive justice. People have been complaining and I don't know much about it. So I don't know if you can help me with the two, more so when it comes to PWDs. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Nerima, you can take the 4.
Sorry, Cynthia, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat Timothy's question. I didn't hear Timothy or Julian. I actually dropped out. Can you just give me a summary?
Okay. Timothy needed to know whether you're present in Lamu County. Okay. Who was the other person? Come again? Hello, Nerima?
Julian, the last person who spoke. The last person who spoke after.
Okay. Julian, you can ask your question again.
Okay. I'm there.
Julian, we can't get you clearly.
My question was at the grassroots level. And when it comes to fighting for their rights or during the political issues, these people are being affected. And sometimes I got even cases when it comes to gender-based violence, and I don't know how to go about it. And again, on reproductive justice. Again, I don't have proper orientation on doing that. I fear doing it because I'm not trained on it, and people are complaining because some of them trust me that I can help, but for me, I cannot go beyond that. So I just wanted to know, what can I do to fill this gap in the community at the community level, so these people can be helped and bring more people on board who we can work with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Julian. I think Julian's question is probably borders on capacity building. Take it away, Nerima.
Yeah, was it capacity building on GBV?
Yes, and reproductive health as well.
Okay, yeah, because I think I had that part. Okay, thank you. So, yes, we are in Lamu. We have just started actually in Lamu. So I think the easiest way to get in touch with us, because I've seen several people asking for the different localities across the country, is the fastest way is either through our Facebook or through our Twitter. if you just DM and ask who to contact in whichever county, Daisy, who manages those accounts, will be able to respond to you and give you a contact. I think that's the easiest way. But yes, we're in Lamu, we're in Kericho, we're in Kisumu, we're in Homa Bay, we're in Busia. So I'm answering the ones that I've seen people asking me. So definitely message Daisy and then she can give you the contact for each of the counties. And then on the question for from Julian, I would say what you're doing is very difficult, especially in terms of mental health, not just for the victims coming to you, but also for yourself. So you definitely need the proper capacity. I know that Badili Africa does a lot of work on GBV. So look for Badili Africa, even if it's they're very active on on Instagram and on Facebook, they're very active. So it's they focus on gender-based violence, but they focus on it especially in rural communities, urban informal settlements, and also during elections. So campaign periods, politics, and another good partner that they have is called Oasis Africa. Oasis Africa, they do a lot of psychosocial support. So psychosocial support is the one that, the counseling that victims receive, but also her team needs counseling. You will need counseling as well, Julian, because of even the stories that people come to you with, you also end up carrying it. So I think that's a good organization to partner with and learn from. And someone asked me the name of the organization again. For the refugee, so look for Refugee Council. I think he's on Facebook. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, Cynthia, the last one. The office in Homa Bay, as to confirm the location of it, it's at Ragama, something along Kisumu Highway, opposite Watu Building. So that's the office that's going to be in Homa Bay. So they've just finished it up. So I know they'll be launching it soon for Hope.
Thank you. Thank you, Nerima. I will again say, in this particular first career talk, you have been our African sensei. You have a deep wealth of knowledge. You have a deep understanding of what the youth require. You are a real story. You can literally show us and tell us how you have told us your story, in as much as you began the session saying that you're not a storyteller, but you have done very, very well. Your work can be seen. We appreciate the fact that, yes, it has not been easy for you to even get the name Siasa Place. So kudos to that. You have really empowered the team, and I believe that is a sentiment that a good number of us share. So in the chats, everyone, if we could probably give a thumbs up, a high five, and just goodwill to Nerima for even giving us her time. 2 hours for her to share with us is big time. This is a big investment for Amnesty, and also thank you, Nerima, for the same. We undertook a poll, and from what we are seeing here is that what a good number of the attendees would like to, one of the biggest themes they would like us to undertake is on job search strategies and networking at 91%. That is really, really big. And I'm seeing we are still having some of us continuing to participate in the poll. 93 of us have already participated, and this is at 71%. I will give us a bit, 2 to 3 minutes for you to participate in the same, because this is going to give us an indication of where we are going next. But as Amnesty International, we are really, really honored that you honored to our call. We could probably have prepped for this, but you didn't show up. Just the fact that you agreed to be our audience it is really an honor for Amnesty. So as I wrap up, I will end this with a Chinese proverb. And this is something that we live by as Amnesty. It is better to light a candle than to cast the darkness. In your different spaces, be the candle in the darkness that they're in. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much for your time. And in the upcoming weekend, enjoy the weekend. Asanteni sana. And to Nerima, salute, my African sensei.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend, everyone.
Thank you, Nerima. We will share the, thank you. We will share the recording of this call. So for those who are not able to listen in end to end, through the recording, you will be able to capture what we have discussed. And we will also put in mind the next theme based on the responses we have received in this call. Thank you very much, team.